All right, what's up? We're back at it again with another episode. This time we've got another guest with us today, so I'm very excited about who we've got to talk to. But first off, as always, I'm your host, Ryker Taylor, and we've got producer Alex in the house, and welcome back to Wondercast. So like I said, we've got a guest, and his name is Kyle Bingham. He's kind of the jack of all trades for the Bingham conglomerate of companies, so we'll kind of let him break down what that actually is and what his role is, but we're very excited to have him in. So first off, Kyle, thanks for being here. Second off, give us the intro of who you are.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so right now I work with three different companies for the family.
Okay.
We've got Bingham Family Vineyards that handles all of our growing, whether it's fruit, whether it's cotton, whether it's grapes, whether it's cotton, hemp, whatever we are growing, whatever's in our rotation for the year. Then I also work more of a back-end administrative CFO type position for Bingham Family Cellars. That's going to be the wine production side, and that handles all the retail sales as well. Then I'm also the COO of Bingham Family Organics. That's a new company that was just formed last fall, and this is going to be our health and wellness supplement company that's going to be focused on hemp-based cannabinoid products.
Okay, very nice. So a lot of stuff going on. Probably never a dull day around your household for sure. So yeah, obviously family business. Kind of talk to me a little bit about like the family business, like how it came about, how y'all, because obviously y'all are doing several different things now. So kind of just take me through the journey here.
Sure, yeah. So the family business, so initially it was more my dad and my granddad working together. And we were looking, as they were growing the business, diversifying into several different things. My dad was looking for ways to keep us, if we wanted to, make sure we had positions and places to grow on the farm, doing pushing the ticket where we wanted to. And so that's where we found different, that's kind of where, as we diversified and as we kind of found it, different people found their niches where they want to do, especially in the winery. My dad made it real clear early on, hey, I love the vineyards. I love growing things. I'm not going to touch the winery.
Okay.
That's your project.
Okay.
And so what he was telling us as we started. And so my sister, Marissa, manages the winery. My brother, Daniel, is the winemaker there. And then I have another brother, Blake, also works very involved on the winery there. I've got another brother, Nathan, who is he's one of the guys in the vineyard, helps run the vineyard crews there. Got a sister who helps on the marketing and the winemaking side, or the retail side.
Okay.
My mom is the direct-to-consumer manager. She manages all of the tasting rooms, is a big part of the advertising and marketing side as well.
Okay. So. Yeah. So you got family. You got all your siblings involved pretty much there. So
I think at this point we're about half of them are full-time, a number of them are part-time, and then some of them have chosen other paths.
Sure.
So yeah,
sure.
We definitely encourage that. Hey, if you want to go do something else, we
absolutely,
we don't want to hold you here.
Sure. No, but that's cool. I mean, one, that's awesome to like have that your dad created that opportunity for y'all for sure. I think that's if you're going to have a business, you might as well make sure, if you can, that your kids have an opportunity to be there if they want to be. I love that. Okay. Well, so we were kind of talking off camera beforehand, and you were talking to me about how it was like you used to be cotton, and then you broke into some other crops, peanuts, things like that. And then now you're in, obviously into the vineyard side of things. We're in the grapes. Talk to me about like that journey, because I think that's probably what's kicked off the modern day, version of Bingham was probably the vineyards, right? So kind of talk to me about that.
Sure, yeah. So it really started with just looking to how do we diversify our rotation? How do we make our land more sustainable? Mm-hmm. And a big part of that was water usage. Okay. Vineyards use about the same amount of water as cotton per acre. Okay. You don't have to hit your wells all summer hard. You don't work them hard for 3 months and then let them rest all winter, which is what cotton does. And that's stressful for your wells. Mm-hmm. Instead, you can work that same amount of water all year round in a much more consistent fashion. And then also your acres are more profitable, so you can make, you're much more profitable and irrigate less acres.
Okay.
So the long story short, it's a way for us to stay farming, continue working the land, and use much less water.
Okay.
So water consumption is always, how do we save water is always very important.
Yeah. Okay. So I like that, that obviously that environmental impact for sure that your guys are focusing on. Kind of take me from, you had this idea, you realized, okay, it's just better for the land, for us to do this other thing. Talk me through like what that looked like. How many years did it take? I know it takes like 3 to 5 years. So kind of talk to me about what that looked like, and then how did that morph into where you're at today with the tasting rooms and all that?
Sure. Yeah. So we started first year, 2 acres, 1 acre of Gewürztraminer, 2 acres of Viognier. We were going to try it out, see where it went. Second year, we planted another acre of Viognier. And we spent, and then the third year we took a year off, and we just spent those first 3 years just learning, had a really good harvest on some of it, on the third and fourth year, which is industry standard is closer to 5.
Okay.
We were seeing it 3 to 4 years, especially early on. The climate was much more hospitable for vineyards 15 years ago.
Okay.
We weren't seeing the late freezes and the early freezes that we keep seeing right now. And so we started slowly growing that, the vineyard side, the fresh fruit production, being able to learn how to harvest and quickly deliver that, because the speed in which we deliver the fruit, the freshness is very important with grapes.
Okay.
And we built that into a 200-acre vineyard. At that point is when we started kind of hitting that plateau where we were pretty comfortable with that size, and we were looking for some more added value opportunities. How do we produce a better product for the customer? That's when we started. We put our own crush facility on site so that we could so that we could quickly harvest, press, and chill. And that gave us the ability to deliver chilled fresh fruit for the 8-hour drive down to Fredericksburg or wherever it was going, giving us a much more higher quality fruit for the customer.
Yeah. So are y'all like some of the only people that are doing that kind of a process?
No, we were not the first one. We definitely had a couple operations around that were doing some custom crush before we did that. Neil Newsom has been pushing. He's been trying to do that. And you've got a couple other people working on it. Once we got it up and running, I think we saw about 3 or 4 more people quickly follow suit.
Okay.
Because we saw the benefit of the infrastructure.
Sure.
And logistically, it's a whole lot easier for us to move that fresh fruit and then just ship the juice over long distances. At this point, I think there's probably 6 or 7 people doing similar type things in the area.
Yeah. Okay. So it started off as a cotton farm, right?
Yes.
Years and years ago. And then now it's like something totally different than that. And I know you mentioned before when we were off camera and whatnot that y'all still do some like cotton and organics and things like that, but it's definitely come a long way. Was there ever a moment where like your dad or you in this journey or anybody else in your family was like, did y'all ever know that it was going to be this one day, or do you just show up and do your thing and it's just become this over time?
I mean, looking back, we some days we're trying to figure out how it kind of snowballed out of control this far.
Okay.
This in no way was this the plan.
Okay.
It was more, we just took it one step at a time, one day at a time, and looked to how do we improve our position? How do we improve the company? How do we build on what we have? Looking back when we planted the vineyard, we had no intention of coming this far.
Yeah.
But as we built the company, we've recognized that selling fresh fruit is not a great commodity to sell. It's risky. It's difficult to produce a consistent supply every year versus a bulk wine product. If we have a high and a low crop and we're floating the low years with the high years, you can sit on wine and it only gets better. You're not worried about that fruit. You have about a 1-week window to harvest and deliver. Once it's harvested, it has to be delivered immediately. If not, it gets dumped on the ground and it's wasted. So
Jeez.
Yes, it's not like, I mean, you can stick it in the freezer, but that can be difficult.
Sure.
There as well.
And it probably hurts the quality of it, I'd assume, a little bit anyway.
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Sticking fruit in a freezer is a technique called cryomaceration.
Okay.
As that ice ice forms in the fruit, it creates, especially in a red wine. In a white wine, I wouldn't expect there to be a benefit. I'm not the winemaker.
Okay.
But on a red, you're going to get an additional amount of maceration to open up that fruit. And then when you thaw it out and go into your initial fermentation, your initial fermentation happens on the fruit and on the skins and the must. Okay. And so it can open up some additional flavors. Okay. Certain varieties like Dolcetto can really benefit from that cryomaceration.
Okay.
And so sometimes you do it because of necessity, and sometimes you do it because you want to see the technique.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, most of the time you hear like fresh, never frozen, and so, but like to hear you say like, no, there actually is like some science behind like sometimes. So if you're listening to this and you're like at the store and they're like, oh yeah, they freeze this wine. Well, doesn't necessarily mean it's a cheap quality. It might just be what they did to pull out the flavor. So that's really interesting. But yeah, I love what you said about like, it was never like, this was never the plan necessarily. It was just show up to the job, do the best you can do, and always improve. Like one thing that you said that really resonated with me was, just improve the business, improve the product. And I think you can build something big, without having to have all these flashy goals, right? It's nice to have goals and plans sometimes, but it's not like an absolute requirement. If you show up and you just do the right thing day in and day out, it's going to grow naturally around you. And that's what it sounds like has happened to y'all, more or less.
Sure. And as we've grown, and especially at our size right now, we do put more of those 3 to 5 year goals.
Okay. Yeah.
Obviously COVID wrecked those, and now we get to restart all that.
Sure.
At our size where we are now, we definitely move toward much more of what's that end goal in sight. Mm-hmm. But we don't ever want to forget that take it day by day, figure those, what are the little steps that take us there?
Right. That one, just get 1% better every day, right?
The end goal's worthless if you don't know how to get there.
Sure. Absolutely. I love that. So, let's kind of talk about, this other side of the business that you said that you're a little bit more hands-on in. And it's obviously a very big in the culture right now, the organic side, but specifically the hemp and all the different things that you can do with hemp. I mean, you can make paper out of it and you can do all this stuff. And I don't know if the validity in this, but I've heard, this might be urban legend, but I've heard the reason that hemp has been outlawed for so many years was because paper companies were mad because you could make it cheaper with hemp. And so they lobbied and got the government to ban it. I don't know the full validity to that. Have you ever heard that story? Or
definitely heard it. Okay. No telling on what's true, what's not. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do with hemp. The question would be not can you do it, but can you do it economically? Okay. I get really tired of the LinkedIn post telling us how hemp is better than cotton. Okay. Because to be frank, cotton is a better germinator. It has better early vigor. It uses less nutrition and less water than the hemp is currently using. If I get up and say that in a hemp show, I could start a fight. Okay. Because you have all these hemp activists, which we need to go and showcase the potential of hemp. But we also need to recognize that farmers have never successfully found a silver bullet, and we never will. What we need is a good rotation system. And what I want to see is hemp come in as this great complement to cotton, rotating and other crops to help build the soils. Cotton especially cotton after cotton in this area, you start seeing some nematode issues. Colorado State University has studies that are showing that hemp is able to kill or either control in ways nematodes. So by rotating back and forth, it's a very simple solution to some issues that are arising. Okay. We do, as we move into, and we try to learn about some of the hemp fiber, we don't want to take hemp as this unicorn that's going to solve all of our problems. We want to look at other industries that have done similar things, such as Canaf, which Canaf really went nowhere. And we want to learn from the mistakes and why it didn't work there. Hemp fiber is not the strongest fiber out there. It's flax. Okay. But you cannot there's no one currently economically producing enough hemp, enough flax fiber to make it profitable. It's too expensive. And so that's where we want to really look at, realistically, is this something that's going to be a big deal, or is it just the next, is it just the next thing?
Yeah.
Is this an ostrich and emu thing,
Sure.
And it's not an ostrich and emu thing, because the big difference is that the CBD products currently on the shelf are in demand. There is an end market for your CBD products. We see hemp hearts in the supermarkets. People are buying it, but there's not enough processing. And so from a grower standpoint, if you don't have processing lined up, and you don't have an end buyer lined up, it's still a niche crop. If you take the entire U.S. industry and look at the end market value and work that backwards, we need something like 30,000 acres of high quality hemp to feed the U.S. medicinal market.
Okay.
That is a tiny niche market. I believe in the U.S. they licensed over 300,000 acres. So people are sitting here trying to figure out why the price of hemp extraction grade material is dropping. It's because we flooded the market. We figured out how to grow it economically and at scale. And so at this point, for people are always asking me, hey, should I do this? Is this something to do? And I'm like, if you don't have an end buyer, if you don't have an end market, you probably will not sell your hemp. Like, that's just, unfortunately, that's how it is.
Right.
So.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot going on there, right? we could spend all day probably talking about this and the different elements, but I kind of want to touch on a couple of key moments or things that I think would be good as far as business takeaways. So you've got, in the hemp world, you've got, it's layered. You've got the legality side that's still like this whole gray area thing, right? Then you have public perception. You got some people that are all about it, and you got some people like, that's the devil's lettuce. You know what I mean, right? Especially where we're at in good old West Texas. I'm actually surprised that it's, more socially acceptable here. Like, I've been surprised by that. That's the whole sidebar thing. But you've got all these layers. So kind of talk through me how you work through all of that stuff.
Sure. So when Lubbock went wet, there was such controversy, such resistance.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so when we got into hemp, we're looking at like, oh, we're going to do this all over again.
Yeah.
And then we found out that half your active seniors were already taking CBD products. And like, we did not get any of the pushback once people heard, hey, there's no THC, or there's very little THC. This is just a medicinal product for CBD. It's just, then there's been very little pushback, and it's really surprised us.
Yeah. It has me too, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at the alcohol side, like Lubbock going wet, Brownfield going wet, we were just all like,
yeah, that didn't happen until, that was 2010 when Lubbock actually finally went wet, I think.
Wasn't that long ago.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you really look at the plant, one of the issues legalizing hemp is, what's the difference in hemp and what is marijuana? Marijuana is cannabis sativa. Hemp is cannabis sativa. They come from the same cannabis, the initial gene. Now, once you get into what is cannabis, there's so many plants out there. Some of them are going to be high in THC. Some of them are going to be high in CBD. Some of them are going to be high in CBG. Some of them have very little cannabinoids, and they're great for producing grains. Some of them have very little cannabinoids. They're great for producing fiber. There's just so many. Once you get into the cannabis world, there's so many different ways to do it.
Yeah.
And so finally, from a legal perspective, how do they separate it?
Right.
Someone who does not know what they're talking about, has no farming experience. We don't know who this person is or who this group was, but they're very hated. Decided to make up a number of 0.3% THC.
Okay.
Just kind of pulled it out of the air. And we're like, all right, that sounds like a safe number. 0.3% THC means it's hemp. Anything above that's marijuana.
Okay.
For a point of reference, your low-quality weed being sold on the black market right now is probably 8%.
Okay.
If you go to Colorado and you want like the good stuff, you're talking 20+%.
Okay. So 0.3% is so far below even the crappiest stuff.
And so once again, as we move into a new market, we're going to put all of the pressure on the farmer who's working outdoors, out in the elements, to perform under unrealistic expectations where they don't get paid and they're expected to burn, plow their crop under. And when you look at also the whole testing protocol as well, the most important thing is not your lab that's testing you, but pulling the representative sample. And so if you go in and try to test a 40-acre field and actually try to pull a representative sample from a 40-acre field, it's virtually impossible. So if you're pushing the higher cannabinoid medicinal side, you have to be very careful, really make sure you're sampling weekly, really study that. So from a legal perspective, we've been pushing for a 1% THC level.
Okay.
You want to get high with 1% THC, it's not going to do you any good.
Yeah.
You
good?
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're good.
Silence that. Yeah, so from a legal perspective, 1% THC gives that farmer some freedom, because your hemp, if we had the ability to push it to more like a 0.5% THC, it just gives us a little flexibility, gives us a little safety net.
Yeah. Now I know some people who grew it, and they grew it outdoors, right? And in the Texas heat, especially that we had last year, that made it come back hot, right?
Sure.
So it came back, and they had, they probably had 15, 20 acres of it. They burned a lot of it. So.
Yeah, I mean, you come in at 0.35.
Yeah, and you're done.
You cannot get high on this.
No.
Like maybe you go in there and extract and separate out the THC. It's not even economically possible to produce anything that's going to get you high from that Delta 9 perspective. And so, so looking at that, it just doesn't make a lot of sense, you know, but it is the rules we have.
Right.
And so we have to follow them.
So, what does that look like, I guess, from your business company? Like, how are you playing in? Obviously, you're advocating for the 1%, but you're still subject to what you have now. So you said you're kind of like you're testing weekly, or so. Like, what things do you have in place to ensure that 9 times out of 10 you're hitting?
You test weekly.
That's it. That's all
you track that,
and you pray.
Yes.
Yes.
You track that. That's why we put a lot of water on it late season as you're maturing the cannabinoid side.
Okay.
There's some evidence that would suggest that stress is going to encourage your THC, that the THC is a stress, will build faster as a stress response to heat.
Okay.
I'd like to see that confirmed. And so that's where you're trying to limit some of that stress and really take care of that late season as it's building that.
Sure.
That can help. But at the end of the day, you test a lot. And when you hit that 0.2, 0.25, then you harvest at that point. And you pull it there, and you don't try to push that 0.3.
Okay, because it's going to naturally kind of maybe, well, even if it does, like you want it to stay under the 0.3, it doesn't have to be at 0.3. So.
Yeah, I mean, once you pull it at that, once you pull your final sample, it goes to the lab tests it, and then TDA reads the sample. And at that point, you can pull it from the field. So say you pull it at a 0.28, and it hits a 0.3 by the time it leaves the field. It's still considered a legal product because the test happened at 0.28, and that's when it was read. We have 15 days to get it out of the field. So it's not like you can leave it there and let it keep climbing.
Sure.
Like they give you, maybe it goes up a little, but you're not really going to see much of a difference.
Gotcha. Okay. Nice. So hemp, wine, vineyard, how are you, or are you really working on crossovers there? Like, we're about to see a wine from you guys that's infused with CBD.
Yeah.
Like, what are we there?
So from a legal perspective, we've been advised that that's not legal in Texas.
Sure. Okay.
Because for what we're reading from TABC's rules is they are not compliant with the latest federal rules. And so they're kind of at odds whether it's legal or not. So I think there are some people that are going to be doing it, and we're going to see how different agencies feel about it.
Sure.
We do have some stuff in the works that you may see coming.
Okay.
We've got some ideas. I mean, I love the idea of, at the end of the day, have a glass of red wine with some CBD in it, calms you down, helps you sleep, helps you with your sore joints.
Yeah.
Red wine, it's got some of those similar characteristics. So we would love to see some of that, but also, we've always strove to produce high quality, very safe products for our customers. And so for our customers, we're going to be bringing out tinctures, lotions, capsules, and creams.
Okay.
With that same promise from our wine. Hey, we're going to have that same quality for you in the CBD products. that you don't have to go to someone they're not a reputable business person that's just selling. Unfortunately, in Texas, we're finding a lot of low quality product or product that it doesn't even have CBD in it.
Yeah,
it's just a carrier. It's just empty. They're just putting the name on there, faking the COA. They're saying, hey, we've got this in it. And as we've been moving to get our products into stores, some of the business owners, they ask for samples. They don't trust our COAs. They want to go test them, which I'm all for. I'm like, go test them.
Yeah, you want that.
I know what's in there. I'm all for that accountability because I'm confident in my product.
Sure, absolutely. And I think anybody that's legit would be for that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I think honestly, as a business owner, if you really want to make sure you have what you say you are selling, you should be running your own tests. Maybe not on every single product, but just running checks here and there. Verify the vendors when they bring in product, and then just run a few checks occasionally. Unfortunately, that costs money.
Sure.
Sending it to a lab. We work with New Bloom Labs. They do an incredible job, really fast turnaround. And they're also very well respected across the U.S. That's the thing. I saw a COA for some seed the other day from a lab I never heard of. And I'm like,
do you believe it or not?
Yeah. At that point, I'm like, we got to rerun it with my lab.
Yeah.
You may have a good lab. I don't know. But we're going to have to rerun that COA with my lab.
Sure. I think that's what's happening. Like anytime there's something new, and I think you kind of alluded to it, and I've seen it in my own just experience, but we're on that thing now where CBD, it's flooding the market more, right? So fast forward to 2 years ago, and it was still, there wasn't that many people doing this, right?
Sure.
But you wake up today and it's like there's a gajillion brands, and and the reason for that is everyone saw the handful of people doing it. They're like, oh, we can make some money on this quick, and then they jump in, and it's kind of like roofing almost, right? The fly-by-nighters, and so the legit ones like yourself, y'all all have that holding power, that staying power, but it's these fly-by-nights that are just like bringing down the reputation of the industry as a whole, and it sucks. But yeah, is there anything that y'all try to do to help combat that outside of just having these independent tests and things like that? Or
at that point, we don't really see any additional regulation coming in to help with that. At that point, it just goes back to relying on our reputation and maintaining our reputation, taking care of customers, maintaining customer service.
You just do you.
All the things we've always done, we're going to keep doing those things. Every time we're questioned, time someone wants to verify our product, we're going to help them do that. Yeah, and let them run it by their labs, let them run it by their people, and let them find ways to help. Sure, show them who we are.
Nice. Well, kind of taking a break from this segment, Alex, we'll let you chime in here and ask some branding questions. Before I do, I'm gonna tee this up. So I don't know if you'll be able to see in the camera. Maybe you'll see his hat here. He's got the Bingham family logo on it, and it's a B with a music note. And the reason for that, at least in part, is that your family is very integrated into the music scene. So give me a breakdown on that.
Yeah, so music's always been a big part of what we've done. When my great-granddad founded the land, he brought his fiddle with him, and it was always a big part of his life. My granddad played guitar, my dad played piano, and we've just kind of kept that alive. We've kept a lot of that old fiddle music alive, some of that Frankie McWhorter, some of the stuff Lanny Phil did. But then we've also kind of moved in for me and my siblings as the younger generation kind of moved into some of the stuff we enjoy as well. I love doing some classic rock and then we all played a lot of classical as well.
We're going to hear Ariana Grande from y'all?
Probably not.
Yeah, no, for sure. But nice. Yeah. So everyone in the family plays or all the siblings for the most part plays, right?
Yes.
Okay. Very nice. And it's just a smattering of different instruments. So you can have a full family band going on.
Yeah. It's mainly strings.
Okay.
I'm trying to think through.
Any percussion?
No percussion.
No percussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always wanted to do it. Never had time.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Percussion never gets the love. It never gets the love. The stringed instruments are always the ones that people gravitate to because the drums are always at the back. So I understand how that goes. It's a rare breed for sure. But yeah, so the music note, the hat, the brand, it's a very cool brand. And I was teeing up Alex there because he's our branding guy, right? So he always asks those hard-hitting questions. So what do you have for Kyle here?
Not too much in particular. I just really think that that's a cool idea to incorporate that into that. I just want to know what, like, in essence, what made you guys want to do that aside from that? Like, how did you find that to a way where you could incorporate those all together and make them personally look good, and two, how they can be told in a story, kind of like you're doing now. So what was the thought process behind that?
I think part of it was before we started our own winery, we were the biggest vineyard as a consumer that you've never heard of.
Okay.
Everyone in the industry knew who we are. They knew what we did. We would just different industry events. We would go and play, and so we wanted to reflect kind of who we were, what people knew of us in the industry to our customer base, and we liked what had happened with the industry, but we knew we had to do it all over again once we started building that customer base direct to the consumer.
Okay, nice, for sure.
Yeah, future Alex, make sure to add a logo version of this up here. This is a note to myself here in the future. Okay. Also to the podcast listeners, sorry for that.
Okay, yeah, for sure. But no, I really love just the whole family vibe that y'all give off. Now, I know it's y'all don't just keep it in the family. Obviously, you have other people that work for you. Some, people that I have known, and kind of talk to me about, like, I've seen y'all bring in some other families. Like, you guys have like other families that work for y'all too. Kind of talk to me about that.
Sure. Yeah. No. It's. I mean, there's definitely a place for any of our family that wants to work in the business. It may not be the position they want, but if you're looking for something, we can definitely create that. But at the same time, the quality of our employees are a big part of what has built our company. And so we have looked for those people to put in the company to help us build this. And that's always been a big part. That's kind of something I always log in my head when I interact with vendors or just different people, whether for my latest hire, it was an intern for Texas Hemp Growers Association.
Okay.
I just kind of logged him like, hey, this guy's smart, hard worker. If I ever have a position, I'm going to give this guy a call. And so that's kind of something, I know the culture I want to build. My family's the same way. We know the culture we want to build. And so we're looking for those people. And when those positions come available, we want to be able to reach out and really fill those with quality people.
Yeah. So you're kind of always in recruit mode, right? Yes. So like, it's like, even if you're not hiring, you really take that whole like recruiting approach instead of just hiring for a job. You're like wooing them, come on over here, you know. So
you know what, it's easier and it's cheaper to poach the guy you want than to go throw something up online and run through 30 people that you've never heard of. Half of them don't show up. And when we've done that, we have found some great hires. But it's so much more difficult running someone through a single interview and then you got to try to make your observations from there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, we recently have been going through the hiring process. We got somebody new starting with us on Monday, but I can definitely attest to the whole, I mean, we found a great candidate that we wanted to extend the offer to. So I think we're definitely going to have a winner on our team, but there can be, you got to definitely sift through and find like the right culture fit. And like I liked what you said, you know the culture you're trying to build, right? That's something that we take as our approach as well. They've got to be a culture fit before they've got to be like a skill set fit. Because you can always train for the skills if they don't have that right away. But you got to make sure you got the right person. So
absolutely, yeah. I just assume going into new hirings that I'm not going to find the quality person, the qualified employee.
Okay.
So I'd rather find the quality person and train them and spend the time to train them into the position.
Yes, 100% agree with that. And I think if you're listening to the show and you're, in a position where you're either hiring now or hiring soon and you haven't thought about this, it really truly is much easier to train somebody for what you want them to do. And they can take it and run with it if they're the right fit. They're going to be willing to learn. They're going to be coachable and approachable, the whole nine. So it's good to hear, stories like
absolutely.
This. Yeah. Like Bingham Family Vineyards right here. Great example of somebody that does that. But what do you got, Alex?
Shout out to Thoughts episode 1 if you want to go check out on how to look into hiring stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we've got another, that was a plug. We've got another video series coming up well, by the time this episode goes out, it'll probably actually be out. But yeah, it's a new video series, and one of our employees here that does our operations in HR, he's going to be talking about hiring, I guess. So yeah, this good little segue, good little plug. Thank you, Alex. Yes, there we go. Cue up the sound effects. But yeah, okay. So let's get back to some of the story of the company and things like that. So, what do you find yourself doing most of the day now?
Talking on the phone, sitting in front of a computer.
Okay.
All the things I hate.
Okay.
So I love taking care of customers. I love for creating products for customers.
Mhm.
I just don't want to talk to them all the time.
Okay. Fair enough.
And so in my position, like I used to be like my nickname was Linus because I was like the dirtiest guy showing up for lunch.
Okay.
It didn't matter what machine that needed fixed or what job needed to be done. Like I was the guy, I would make sure it happened. And now as I've kind of moved into more senior leadership, it's been much more of learning how to take much more of a top-down approach, where I am spending much more of my time equipping employees and teaching them how to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And so my philosophy on that is really like my goal is to work myself out of a job.
Mm-hmm.
I want every person in there to be able to do their job, be equipped to do their job, to be trained to do their job. And so that if my job was successful, I would just show up for an hour and go home.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's always something going wrong, and then that fills up the rest of my day.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Nice. I love that. And, as the company evolves, the people internally, such as yourself, their roles and positions evolve too. And that's really cool. Obviously, you probably wouldn't appreciate, like if you were still doing the same thing now that you were when you first started. Maybe, but you like the growth, I would assume. So.
I've definitely learned a lot over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I think that those early years working, moving around the business, learning so many things is very beneficial for where I am now.
Yeah. Cross training.
Yeah. Because when issues arise, I generally know enough about the situation to be able to sit down with that person, talk through the issue.
Yes.
And we can figure out the solution. It's a little different now as I get into certain areas where we're bringing in maybe a consultant, where I'm coming in and I'm like, I'm clueless.
Yeah, you're bringing this person in to tell you how to do it, right? Yeah.
So that's been a little different. Some of the contractors we bring in, especially on the software side, and that's been so different for me as I've kind of learned between some basic coding and some Excel. I figure out what I need done before I send it to those contractors to actually do the work. That's been another thing that my old coach, I think he's probably laughing right now that the guy that he was trying to teach to play tennis who had no finesse is out there building spreadsheets and like doing all this stuff with the numbers. They're like, that doesn't sound like the guy we had back in high school.
Nice. That's awesome for sure. Well, yeah. And I love that. Again, that's back to the culture and the hiring the right person. I think it's important to cross train. Like I that's something we do up here. Alex has the things that he does, but he's dabbled in a little bit of everything that we can do. He at least has a fundamental understanding of, and that same holds true for pretty much everyone up here. And I just think that's very important. It helps you do your job better when you at least understand what this other person that you're also relying on to help you do your job is also having to do.
Yep.
So awesome. Well, as we're kind of getting ready to wrap this episode up, we have a segment we call Tic-Tac-Toe. We're not actually going to play Tic-Tac-Toe. We used to, but it just doesn't work that way anymore because I would always have to let the guest win. But instead of a tic-tac-toe, it's tips, tactics, and total domination. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions, rapid fire real quick, and you just give me answers that come to your mind, and we'll go from there. So the first one, what's a tip that you have for anyone that's listening to this, business owners, entrepreneurs, things like that, just to help them?
If you can't find a need, you're in the wrong business.
Okay. I love that. What's a tactic that you like tangibly implement to help you do your job? Or like, we've had people say like, I go to bed at the same time every day. Like, sometimes it's their nighttime routine. Like, what is that for you? Tactical.
Yeah. I mean, I have 4 kids, so my routine's kind of shot to start the day out.
Yeah.
But finding those recovery times whether it is showing up to work late recognizing, hey, I got a slow day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take a slow morning, grab breakfast with my wife and show up 2 hours late. Finding that recovery time for me is crucial, because the weekends may not be that for me.
No, I love that recovery wind down time is just as important to help you set up for success the next day. Last thing, total domination. So what's something that like you just want to totally dominate at, or like an action that you take to totally dominate at something? It can either be an industry or something, again, tactical.
Research.
Okay.
I want to know everything about the subject.
That's cool. Yes.
Especially getting into the hemp side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really into the fiber and grain right now.
Okay.
But I want to know everything about the cannabinoids, fiber, and grain, every part of those, because it's the same plant. And right now, as we grow a plant that has the potential of doing all of it,
mm-hmm.
I want to know these things, because as you make those connections, hey, if this person wants to buy this and this, all of a sudden you can create those connections.
Yeah.
And hopefully very soon we're going to be moving into some of the certified organic hemp hearts.
Okay. Yeah.
But there's a lot of infrastructure behind it,
mm-hmm.
and it's so many things, like, and you can't just take the sales guy's word for it. You can't just take the spec sheet. You got to run down to the source and find what really works.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the more you know, right?
Yep.
That helps you do your job. Okay, well, we're closing remarks here as we're getting ready to wrap up. Anything that the good people of the internet world should know that you guys are up to, like a new wine coming out, a new product? What do you got coming on the horizon?
Yeah, BinghamOrganics.com is going to be a great place to find our new product.
Okay.
We've got tinctures right now. We're gonna have some lotions and capsules coming out very soon.
Okay.
And a few other products. We're looking for some really specific things to bring on to set us apart.
Sweet. Well, dude, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. We really enjoyed it. If you listen to this, subscribe on YouTube or whatever podcast platform you're listening on, Spotify, Apple, or the like. And we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.